Yeah. Two. Yeah. Aye. I'm jacking the beat, you calling the cops. The yapping is cheap, I call you the ops. The rapping is heating, it's all cause of pop. You get a leak for the ball, get a drop. Feel like I'm wrong when I double it back, cause I'm making it harder to catch that. But I covered the ticket, I call you to visit. You tipping and hit up the cash app. Baby girl, been round for it, yeah. In the old days, I was stuck in old ways. Never really trying to flip the old page. Young man tripping at an old age. Thinking I was flicking, had a low wage. Led the bro days, then a slow praise. Thinking it'd be different, it would gon' change. Then it really didn't, it's a cold game, yeah. Ay, all I really wanted was the money in the pocket. Got over money, but the money ain't the topic. Like Bill Doe and the money gotta stop it. Kid need food and the whip need juice. I'ma get these views when the work hard, play hard, homeboy, everybody ain't calling out. Got a mouthpiece from the southeast, if you want scrap, stall him out. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then I feel good, man, I'm balling out. I'm a rich man with a rich fam, Christ bars got me out of mama house. And I'm blessed God, give thanks. Blessed God, give thanks. Blessed God, give thanks. Blessed God, give thanks. Big God, big grace. Big God, big grace. Big God, big grace. Big God, big grace. Bless God, give thanks. Bless God, give thanks. Bless God, give thanks. Bless God, give thanks. Big God, big grace.
What it do, y'all? It's your partner looking old, so fresh, cold, clean. You see that thing, y'all. So, I say it every single day. Take the picture for your mom and them guys, and welcome to another edition of the Countermove podcast, where we kind of lean in and reason, look at life from a wise perspective, and then prescribe the right solutions. You know how I begin it every single week. If you are looking for some type of debate, guys, do me a hot, quick favor, guys. Click on that unfollow button and get the hell out of here. We are here, guys, to kind of lean in and reason together, man. Come up with some solutions, guys. And today is going to be a very interesting one, guys, that we're going to talk about. And this topic has been a highly debated topic for a long period of time. It has been in the news here the last 1 or 2 weeks. I've been busy with business, so I have not been. I've been listening, but I haven't responded to this. I've been asked a lot about this topic, and so I said, "Well, it's about time for me to kind of sit down and talk about this, and let's kind of sit in and reason together." Now, I'm going to say this off the rip. What I'm saying is not the gospel. This is just my perspective. But my goal is for it to be a wise perspective, okay, with the intent of offering some value and maybe even some wise counsel for those that may need it. And then what we can end up doing is that then prescribe the right solution for your situation, okay? So if you're looking for a debate, this is not the area for you. But no worries, guys. Let's dive into this real quick, guys. Let's talk affirmative action. This has been a discussion for a long period of time, and there's been a lot of contention around this policy. To be honest with you, I knew very little about it until I began kind of looking into it. And so, as I was looking into it, I said, "Okay, I wanted to see what was the intention behind it. What was the reason why it actually came about." But before we can even jump into this, guys, I thought it'd be wise to actually look at it and see what affirmative action is. So let's dive into this real fast, guys. I looked this up, guys, and I put it on a Word format because the format that was showing me wasn't really good. So I want you guys to be able to see it. Let's read it together and see exactly what it says. Okay, guys? It says affirmative action. What is affirmative action? It says affirmative action is a policy or practice aimed at promoting opportunities for individuals belonging to a historically disadvantaged groups, such as ethnic minorities or women. Okay. It involves taking proactive measures to increase their representation and participation in education, employment, or other areas where they have been traditionally represented. The goal is to address past discrimination and create a more effective, equitable society. Affirmative action can take various forms, including outreach programs, preferential hiring, and admission policies in educational institutions. Its implementation and effectiveness can be subject to debate and vary across different countries and contexts. So, that makes sense. And so when I actually read that, when this policy was actually came into fruition, it kind of makes some sense. I said, you know what, this kind of makes some sense where the intention or the heart behind it actually made some sense. But at the exact same time, the one thing that I do kind of see here, guys, is when I see the goal is to address past discrimination and create more equitable a more equitable society. There's a decision making process, or there's people in these areas. For instance, you have outreach programs, preferential hiring, admission policies to educational institutions. Well, there is people sitting in these places of really power that are making these decisions. And so I just said, okay, so there's a moral compass behind that's governing each and every person, whether they are female, male, black, white, you name it. They're in these powerful positions, and their moral compass, it is determining how they actually do this. In other words, what's guiding someone's decision making to say yes to said applicant or said person or no. So there's a compass guiding that situation. I said, okay, so the intention behind this was actually a good intention. So a hand clap of praise there. I'm rocking with that. Now, guys, let's go to the pro affirmative action policy view. There was a lot of media on both sides of this. It was I had to kind of pick and choose which one to kind of go into a little bit. And so we're going to go to a couple of these. It's going to be a total of three videos for both sides. Okay. Three total, not each, but total. And let's go to the first one real quick, guys. This one is going to be CBS News. Well, when the Supreme Court decided to overturn this, okay, you got media immediately on this. So this is the pro affirmative action policy view. Okay, let's be looking at both sides. So this is the pro for the policy staying in place. Here we go. Let's see exactly what's going on.
But I know that you've been getting reaction. What are you hearing?
Well, first of all, you may be wondering, what does the president think of all this, and when might we hear from him? We don't have official word on when that will come. We know that in this White House, packed with lawyers, that's an understatement, they are reading through this decision quickly to try to determine what exactly it says, not only in the specific challenge to these two college admissions cases, but to society writ large. To your question, Anne Marie, about how will this affect the rest of society. That's one of the things that lawyers here at the White House are looking through before the president says anything more, whether that's in writing or in person. We'll keep you updated on that. He's headed to New York later today,
okay.
So it is likely to happen before he leaves the White House on his way to New York for campaign events. There are some interesting statements coming in from various political leaders who have strong opinions on this. I want to call out a very interesting one from former First Lady Michelle Obama, who we hear from so infrequently
Michelle
since
Obama.
she's left the White House on really any matter. But you remember that the story of Michelle Obama begins on the south side of Chicago, involves her going to Princeton to study sociology and African American studies, and then on to Harvard Law School. She is an African American woman who, went to the Ivy League and has surely benefited from superior higher education. So she writes in a lengthy statement today, in part. Before we get to that part that we see there, I want to call out another part. She says, of course, students on the campuses she went to and countless others across the country were and continue to be granted special consideration for admissions. She says some have parents who graduated from the same school. Others have families who can afford coaches to help them run faster or hit a ball harder. Others go to high schools with lavish resources for tutors and extensive standardized test prep that help them score higher on college entrance exams. We don't usually question if those students belong, she says. So often we just accept that money, power, and privilege are perfectly justifiable forms of affirmative action, while kids growing up like I did are expected to compete when the ground is anything but level. He goes on to say, today is a reminder, or today, my heart breaks for any young person out there who's wondering what their future holds and what kinds of chances will be open to them. And while I know the strength and grit that lies inside kids who have always had to sweat a little more to climb the same ladders, I hope and I pray that the rest of us are willing to sweat a little too. Today's a reminder that we've got to do the work not just to enact policies that reflect our values of equity and fairness, but to truly make those values real in all of our schools, workplaces, and neighborhoods. Notably then.
So it is very clear that former First Lady Michelle Obama was for this policy. Also, here in a second, we're going to hear former President Barack Obama weigh in as well. Here we go.
Former President Obama, in a much shorter statement, says in part, like any policy, affirmative action wasn't perfect, but it allowed generations of students like Michelle and me to prove we belong. Now it's up to all of us to give young people the opportunities they deserve and help students everywhere benefit from new perspectives. So that is a notably, strongly worded reaction from Michelle Obama, who clearly has an opinion on this and has expressed opinions on so little else in the years since she left the White House. Clearly this one today hitting a nerve, especially given her own life experiences and how she benefited from higher education. But there are others in the political space who've weighed in.
So that was we just heard from Michelle Obama, former First Lady Michelle Obama, and former President Barack Obama, to where they were talking about the experience of how the affirmative action actually assisted in the progression of their success. Okay. I like what President Obama actually said as far as the end portion of that, as far as create opportunities for others. I like that verbiage as well also. So you heard that as well. Now, let's also bring in real quickly the former Attorney General, Eric Holder, as well. He weighed in on it as well. He's also a pro affirmative action side as well. So let's hear exactly what's going on with him. All right, here we go. Let's see what's going on with him. Here we go.
Court have the ability to come in and correct that wrong.
I want to ask you about affirmative action. In this decision that race cannot be used in college admissions, there was also, written by the Chief Justice's opinion, some detail here that seems a little confusing, frankly, because it says nothing in this opinion should be construed as prohibiting universities from considering an applicant's discussion of how race affected his or her life through discrimination, inspiration, or otherwise. In other words, the student must be treated on his or her experiences as an individual, not on the basis of race. So you can discuss race in a college application, but it can't be. How do you understand this?
Okay. So it sounds like what it's saying is you can discuss race on a college application in what she was trying to say, but it could not be the only decision-making process or the determining factor for getting someone into a school. It should be their experience as well as race. Race is a part of it. So let's see how the former Attorney General Eric Holder responds to this.
I don't really understand it. It seems to me that exception or that caveat is a little inconsistent with the rest of the opinion. And the other footnote that says, well, this doesn't apply to the military academies, which are in essence nothing more than colleges. I mean, colleges with a specialized mission. Again, it seems to be inconsistent with the holding. The thing is that, this nation continues to grapple with issues of race. And to say that race is not a negative factor for too many people in this nation is inconsistent with just what the facts are. The notion of affirmative action is to take into account just one of many things of when you look at qualified people, qualified students who are applying to colleges, look at that one of many things and say, well, for the sake of diversity, we're going to take into consideration the fact that we want to have this Black kid be a part of our university. But there's not a tension between the use of affirmative action and excellence. I think people need to understand that. Affirmative action doesn't mean you get into a school simply because you're Black. It means that you're qualified, and that one of the factors that's taken into consideration of a qualified student is that person's race.
But one of the complications here.
Okay. Cool. So what former Attorney General Eric Holder says, it was he clarified, which is great. I think he unpacked it fairly well when he unpacked it. He said that race was not the determining factor. You have to have some type of merit there. But what he was saying was um, race should not be a deterrent from allowing someone to come in. So he kind of unpacked that a little bit, which is pretty cool. I think he kind of cleaned up what the reporter was trying to kind of frame the question. I think he cleaned it up fairly well. So hey, all right, guys, it is fairly clear to see that former President Obama, former First Lady Michelle Obama, and former Attorney General Eric Holder are really pro affirmative action policy. They have held that pro view, and they believe that this should have stayed in place. All right, so okay, good stuff. Just like with you guys watching this, I'm learning as we go, which is great. No problem. Here we go. Now, let's go over to there is also a pro affirmative action overturning view. Okay, so let's get both sides of the spectrum here. Okay, and let's see what the other side, what they're saying this is, so we can kind of unpack this a little bit more. Let's go here and see exactly what they said. Boom, here we go, and let's dive into this one too. Here we go.
The mainstream narrative already is how calamitous this is going to be from minority students. And I've heard you enough times to know your position is no, to the contrary, it's exactly the opposite.
Yes, I think it is exactly the opposite. The question here was not only for me the constitutionality, the dubious constitutionality of racial preferences. I also looked at the harm that these policies were doing.
So immediately you actually have him saying the affirmative action was dubious, so to speak. So let's let him unpack what he means by this and harm. Okay, here we go.
To Black students, and so I think we saw what would happen when they went away, because some states had eliminated race-based affirmative action in college admissions, like California back in the 1990s. And after California did it, Black enrollment in the University of California system went up.
And there's a lot of talk on Instagram. And thank you guys for tuning in. I am not going to debate the legalities of it. I am not qualified to do that at all. I'm looking at both sides of the spectrum and gauge it on the essence of the definition of what affirmative action is. Okay, we're learning together. Here we go.
Black graduation rates went up, and not by a little bit. And in the more difficult STEM fields, they went up. So these were good outcomes. These policies had been put in place to supposedly help increase the ranks of the Black middle class. But in practice, they had been resulting in fewer Black doctors and lawyers and scientists than we would have had in the absence of the policy. So I'm so happy. I share your enthusiasm about the importance of today and getting rid of these policies. I think this is a decision that makes.
One question I got to ask him, and his name is Jason Riley, is he's making an absolute statement concerning how affirmative action did not benefit Black students, so to speak, and they didn't add to graduation rates. Well, I think that's kind of a flawed type of thinking, because of the fact that how do we know that the person did not graduate in said field when they first got into the university because of affirmative action? What if it's because they changed not disciplines but programs or degree programs? So to make that type of statement like that and really just say because of affirmative action, I think that's kind of a flawed type of perspective there, because we don't know why the fact he's talking about even happened. You don't know why said student did not graduate in this degree. It could be just because they changed degrees. I did that before. When I got my degree, I went in as computer science. Immediately said this is not for me, and then I went to management information systems, but then I changed it over to e-commerce. So it wasn't because of affirmative action, it's because I just changed. That was it.
America more just for everyone, Megan. No one should be discriminated against, not Blacks, not whites, not Asians, not Hispanics. And obviously the Asians were the plaintiffs in this case, but what kind of sense does it make to, discriminate against Asians because of what whites did to Blacks? It makes no sense whatsoever. The best way going forward is not to discriminate, period.
Yes, exactly right. And the court said that. There was an original decision back in, I think it was 78, was Bakke. And then the court took another look at this in 2003 when Sandra Day O'Connor said, all right, we're going to allow it. We're going to continue to allow race to be a factor, but it cannot be the factor, which was the first time the Supreme Court actually sort of fully embraced what had been a very divided decision back in 78 and said, yes, okay, we stand by that, and that is the law. However, we can only see this taking place for another 25 years or so. Any race-based decisions would have to be evaluated under the strictest constitutional scrutiny, and we don't see this one withstanding scrutiny for more than the next 2 decades. And here we are, we're 2 decades later, not quite 25 years, but 2 decades after that decision, and the court finally saying, it's time, this is ridiculous, we can't keep doing this, and your justifications, Harvard and UNC, for continuing to use race as a factor are so vague and amorphous, no court could ever meaningfully assess them. You've been talking about that for a while too, because they basically say, well, it's just good for the student body to have a diverse collection of students. But how's the court supposed to put its finger on whether or not that actually is producing real benefits?
Right. No one can sort of quantify the benefits of diversity. Does it result in higher graduation rates? Does it result in higher earnings after graduating? No one can sort of.
Well, if that's the case, Jason, how do you come to a conclusion that affirmative action was harmful to African Americans when it comes to them graduating? Well, what are the numbers behind that? I'm confused. And how do you know? It could have been because of hardship. For instance, you have a lot of students also they don't finish college a lot of time because they have to go out and work because of families, things of that nature. So they put education on pause for a second. So for Jason to kind of make this overarching type of statement saying that it is because of affirmative action, I got to see numbers behind that. Show us the numbers. There's a lot of vagueness in what he's talking about.
Determine exactly what these benefits are in a quantitative way, and the justices have called the schools out on that. They also called them out for essentially lying about using quotas. I was very happy to look at Chief Justice Roberts' majority opinion, where he actually includes a chart showing the numerical quotas that these schools had been using. He looks at a period between, I believe it's 2009 and 2019, and he shows how the percentage of Blacks and Hispanics admitted each freshman class at Harvard was right around 10 to 12%. And for Asians, it was right around 18 to 20%, year after year after year. And this was not a coincidence. He says, you guys are essentially using quotas and lying about it. And I was very happy for him to call them out on that, because that, again, out in California, when they overturned, when the ballot initiative ended racial preferences in college admissions, the flagship schools, Berkeley and UCLA, have been saying we don't use caps on Asians either. Yet after those preferences went away, after they could no longer take race into account, Asian enrollment spiked in the University of California system flagship schools. And so these schools have been lying for decades about using these quotas, and I was very happy to see the Chief Justice call them out on it.
If what he's saying correct is when it comes to schools lying, when it comes to racial quotas, things of that nature, that leans to you have powerful people in powerful places that are making these decisions, and they're governed by some type of moral compass. So that right there is kind of leans against the essence of what affirmative action was for, if what he's saying is correct.
Well, when you hear the Chief Justice describe the process at places like Harvard for admissions, it really does make clear that race is the final it's both the initial and the final determining criteria, right?
It's
He
not,
walks you through.
what we've learned is that if you allow it to be a factor, it will become the factor. That is what inevitably will happen. And they were so blatant about it. There's a study that was submitted in one of the briefs showing that an Asian, your typical Asian male student admitted to Harvard had about a 25% chance of admission. If you keep everything about him the same, all of his credentials, class rank, test scores, and so forth, and simply change his race to Black, his chances of admission went up to 95%.
Wow,
Megan.
from 25
So
to
race
95.
was not just a factor or a tipping issue that tipped the scales a little bit. It was the factor, and it was wrong. It was wrong. And when I talk about the harm that these policies were doing, what they're essentially doing are setting up smart kids to fail. These kids minority kids are being funneled into these highly selective schools to make the college catalog look like America, to sort of color code the campus. They're window dressing. And when you're a bad fit for a school, you're less likely to graduate and to go on and have a profession and what you prefer. There was a study that was also submitted by the plaintiffs by a Duke professor of economics who did a study of freshmen at Duke, another highly selective school. And he found that Black males that were freshmen at Duke, about 76% of them expressed an interest in majoring in economics or one of the STEM fields, which was far higher than among white males. But only about 35%, less than half, actually ended up obtaining a degree in those fields, while the fall-off rate among whites was only about 5 percentage points. And he said the entire difference here was the entrance scores of the Black students. Duke admitted some Black kids who met the credentials of the average kid at the school, and those kids did fine. But Duke also admitted Black kids who did not meet the average credentials of everyone else at the school, and those kids struggled. They dropped out.
Can you talk about
they
Jason?
switched to
Because I know
majors.
you've cited some.
Okay. He goes on. So that right there is the pro-affirmative action overturning view. Okay. So we've seen both views. We've seen the view of pro-affirmative action policy view. We actually heard former President Obama, former First Lady Michelle Obama, and former Attorney General Eric Holder talk about the benefits of the affirmative action policy being in place. Then you also just heard Jason Riley come in and talk about the pro-affirmative action overturning view, saying that he believes it was the right decision for it to be overturned, and both presented a case for this. Well, a lot of information, guys, a lot of information. Here are my thoughts really quickly, guys. This is my reaction to this. Both sides have a point. Both the policy and pro overturning of the policy have some points. Everybody's going to cherry pick their numbers and things of that nature. I ain't going to try to have none of that discussion because I don't have access to those numbers. That's why I was critical of Jason Riley about. He was making absolute statements on how it was harmful, but there was no numbers to back that up, and there was no additional context to back what he was presenting up. Okay. I actually kind of really respected a little bit more of the presentation that Michelle Obama and President Obama put up there as well also, because they were talking about really the essence. But I digress. Both sides actually have a point, okay? Both sides do. What we in the audience are missing is additional context, okay? The one thing that I do see as a commonality in both of the presentations is this here. And I'm going to go back to the definition itself. Okay. I'm not going to bring it up, but well, actually I am. Here's what I'm, because I want everybody to kind of see where I'm coming from. Okay. We get back up. All right, guys. Here's what we say. I want us to focus on this portion right here. Right here. It says, the goal is to address past discrimination and create a more equitable society. Affirmative action can take various forms, including outreach programs right here, right? This section here, preferential hiring, and admission policies in educational institution. Now, why did I bring that up? Come back to me real fast, guys. Bring that up because and whether you are looking at a hiring situation, outreach situation, or admission into educational institutions, the one thing that we do see as a commonality there is there are people sitting in seats of power making these decisions. No matter if you're pro affirmative action policy or you are pro overturning of the affirmative action policy, you have the same thing in place. People sitting in places of power making decisions. So it didn't matter what side of the aisle you're on, you land in that boat. Okay? And so on the pro side, when it comes to affirmative action, what I kind of came up to is those that are kind of against it, they'll say, well, it should be based on merit. And I could see what you mean by that, but that's only half of the story. And that's what I think Attorney General Eric Holder did extremely well at unpacking. What he said was this here. He said this here. He said it's just not based on merit. It should be based on merit and qualifications. Okay? So he's letting them know, he's Attorney General Eric Holder is letting it know very clearly that it should not be based on just race. It should be also based on merit as well. So on the pro side, they're believing that this should be merit and also a little semblance of race in there as well also when it comes to these institutions. On the pro overturning side, it seems to be that they're looking at, okay, what has happened once people these students get into these universities, what has actually happened? And then you begin to hear how they actually gave harm to people. And I would like to see a little bit more information on how that harmed people, because I'm getting a lot of verbiage, but not enough facts behind that. Okay, I want to see that the entire context. Let's really kind of really let's really look at this and for us to look at it and see it should not be as complex as it is. Give everybody the details and allow for us to choose. Now, what is my view on this? For me, I like control. I don't want my future to be held in someone else's decision-making process. That doesn't mean that I'm going to get myself completely out of that, because you're in business, commerce, whatever it may be, there's going to be someone making a decision on something. Will it be buying your product or approving a loan or agreeing to a deal? There's some decision making there. My thing is this here is, if I go to a school, right, and that PWI school, predominantly white school, does not want to accept me because I'm black, I don't want to even go to that school. Why would I even give a school those dollars? You don't get that honor. Okay, me as the consumer, I have a lot of power myself by saying I get to pick and choose what university I go to. So if one school says we don't want to accept you because of this criteria and it be racial, I don't want to honor you with my dollars. Why would I? You don't deserve it. It's dishonorable, unrighteous. No. Money follows value, and you're presenting no value. So why would I give you my dollars? No. Period. I'm gonna go to another school that's gonna value my intellect, value my creativity, value all this. Then I'm going to bless them with my dollars in exchange for value, because they saw value in me, I see value in them, and it's an even exchange of commerce. As the consumer, you get to choose. So you choose wisely. That's why I said for those that are pro for the policy being in place, I said, oh, okay, no problem. I always say, guys, what's the counter move? What would be my counter move? Very simple. My counter move would be this here. Hey, If a Harvard, Yale, Duke, UNC, if they don't want my dollars, no problem. I'm gonna go to my people. HBCUs, baby. Southern, Howard, Grambling, which my brother graduated from, Texas Southern, Prairie A&M. And I'm gonna bring my intellect there and bless them with my creativity, right? And also, I would say all HBCU schools. If you have students that don't like the overturning of this, and that's okay, beef up your recruiting staff, restructure the compensation package to where it gives them incentives to be better recruiters, and go get our athletes, go get our doctors, go get our attorneys, go get our businessmen, go get our CEOs, CFOs, our accountants, go get them all, train them up, send them out into the marketplace. And don't outcompete them. Be the best you can be. Be the best attorney. Be the best businessman. Be the best athlete, football, basketball, baseball, agent. Be the best business person on the planet, because money follows value. It's simple. The more value you actually put out there, currency will chase you, and you'll get the black dollar, you get the white dollar, you get the Hispanic dollar, you get the Native American dollar, you get the Irish dollar, you even get international dollars. Why? Because you are presenting value, and currency follows value. So if a school doesn't want you to go there because of your race, don't bless them with the money. Take your dollar somewhere else, baby, big dog, baby girl. Why? You have the authority to do that because it's your dollars. Okay? Let's be more wise and where our money is flowing to. Let's begin to build our communities, if that makes some sense. Right, guys? And I'll say this here. No one can be a better you than you. So it's up to you to make the wisest decision on what institution you want to invest your dollars in to teach you a higher learning. It's real simple, guys. Is that right? I don't think it's wise for me to depend on someone to make a decision based to make my life better. No, at all. If I can make the decision first to say, okay, hey, I applied to these 4 or 5 schools, and now I get to make the decision. Do that. If one school don't want you, don't go there. It's real simple. Can nobody be a better you than you? Now it's up to you to invest the capital with the right institutions to train you up, to send you out into the marketplace to be the best attorney, teacher, husband, wife, father, businessman, CFO, CEO, enterprise leader, thought leader, lecturer, you name it. Be the best you can be. You owe you. Okay? You owe you. That's what Eric Thomas would say. I love my boy hip hop Eric Thomas. Well, guys, this is called the Countermove Podcast. I have one comment on Instagram says, wait until they hit HBCUs with non-race. Oh, if they do that, no problem with it at all. What's the counter move, baby? What's the counter move? See, what I'm seeing, guys, is it seems like the natural bent is to be subjective to someone else's decision. Why not be proactive in your decision making to where you're not really worried about what someone else says because you have a counter move already in place? That's how I kind of try to live my life, is to say, okay, as much as I can, how can I have a counter move in place? Because I don't know everything, but I can have a counter move in place in case this happens, and this happens. What is your counter move? If your counter move is to be subjugated to someone else's decision, you're going to lose every time, every single time, guys. So again, what's your counter move? You know what I'm saying? I understand it's easier said than done, but like my man said, brother, I love you said on Instagram. He says easier said than done. I'm rocking with you, but somebody got to be the first. Somebody got to be the first. I'm the first in my family. And normally the first has the hardest job because you are the first. You are. And it's tough because the first hits the potholes. The first takes most of the wounds. The first takes a lot of the arrows. And that is tough. But there's a reason why you are the first, because you can take it. You ready. You've been wired for it. And take it for somebody who is the first. I am the first. By God's grace, I am. Y'all, it's tough at times. It's tough to where people call you and you are the solution. But very few people call you to be a solution for you. That's tough. Sometimes being the first or leader can be a very lonely place. It really can. But you've been built for it. You're ready for it. You got a countermove for it. Widen the circle, bring in that wise counsel, and tell the world, watch out, because you're coming. All right, guys. But what's the countermove, guy? I always say, guys, real simple. Peep it, sweep it, and then keep it, guys. I always say, guys, based on this ruling, examine your current situation. Okay? In other words, how are you currently processing this decision? If you're angry, it's okay to be angry. Be angry. But what's next? If you are cheering because of the overturning, okay, cheer. What's next? What you gonna do next? So again, examine how you're processing this decision. And so my next question is, what are you doing next? What's the next move? Does that make some sense, guys? Number two, I always say this here, guys. Let's see here. Let's see. Now, depending on your answer to that first question, how secure is your strategy? And I'm assuming you have a countermove in place. How secure is your strategy? How secure is it? How secure is that thing? So that's what I would say is, how secure is that thing? How secure is it? If it's not secure, you may want to widen that circle and bring some wise counsel to unpack any of your blind spots. You know what I'm saying? And I'll give you an example, guys, real quick. Okay. One of the guys that I actually follow, his name is Patrick Bet-David. His name is Patrick Bet-David. And he's probably one of the most hardest workers that I've actually seen in the business realm, guys. The one thing I noticed about him is he's constantly in a mastermind. And then I looked at Grant Cardone, masterminds constantly. Then I looked at Myron Golden. He's a modern day Solomon, always in masterminds. Brian Adamson, mastermind. Myself, masterminds. Matt Sapala, masterminds. I keep seeing these guys, and these are thought leaders. These are very highly successful individuals, and even down to the fathers. My Uncle Gary, and these guys are fathers too. They're fathers as well. They're always seeking to be better than yesterday. Okay, so and they're always looking at the strategy and engaging. How secure is the strategy? How's it going so far? What's the accountability I have in place? That makes some sense, so that I can make sure I can properly gauge and say, hey, this is not working. Let me kind of move over here. If that makes some sense. And we all have wise counsel around us, okay? Because of the fact that we don't know everything. Put it like this. I was listening to a guy talk about the founder of Ford, Henry Ford, I believe his name is. And they asked him a question. They said, Mr. Ford, what are the names of Christopher Columbus's 3 boats? His answer shocked me. He said, because I learned this a while back. He said, I pay someone to know that. He said, I have to keep my mind as clear as possible. So to answer that question, talk to that person over there. I have to be razor focused on my vision. And I just said, oh, wow. That was new thinking to me. And that showed me that even back then, Mr. Ford actually had wise counsel around him. The greats are razor focused on their vision. they're very rarely subjugated to someone else's decision. All right. So, so always, how secure is your strategy? All right. And obviously, lastly, this is the keep it page. All right, guys, start thinking generationally. If your plan begins and ends with you, you've already lost. You've lost already. But if your thinking is 3 generations ahead of you, oh, you're onto something big, because your why has to be bigger than yourself. Everybody that I've studied, talked to, bank CEOs, multi-billionaires, guys that run Fortune 1000 companies, all of them have the same thing in place. They think generationally. I was sitting down. We actually own land and homes in Starkville, Mississippi. And when I went out there to kind of look at the properties and gaze and walk through them as well and see what was going on, what tripped me out is here, I got to sit down with the county judge of that county. This is on the campus of Mississippi State University. And we're talking to him. And I said, well, man, how'd you get into what you were doing? Because he's the county judge, but he also owns a law firm out there, very successful law firm, and restaurants as well. And what tripped me out is this here. He began with, well, my grandfather founded this. He founded the law firm. And he taught my dad taught me. And I just said, oh, wow. I'm seeing generational thinking live and in living color. I just said, geez. And his thinking was always for his kids' kids. It was never for himself. I just said, oh my God. And this man has a lot of power. A lot of power. But man, guys, I hope that this helps out. So I'll just say, guys, think generationally, guys. Think outside of you. All right, guys? So, man, give me your thoughts. What do you think? I know that this type of discussion can be a little bit contentious, guys. Was never my intention. My intention was for us to lean in and reason together, because this is the first time I really looked into affirmative action. And as I begin to hear both arguments on both sides, guys, I said, wait a minute, I'm seeing something in common here. There's normally somebody or people making decisions that are controlling people's lives, or people are allowing that to actually happen. So I just said, wait a minute. No, let's begin to train people how to gain back control of their lives. And it's just a benefit if this said person in a high place allows for you to come in, if that makes sense. And also knowing that you have the ultimate authority to say, if you don't want to let me in, my dollars will not follow you at all, because that's dishonoring. There's no value there. But remember, always invest in things that value you. You'll always get a return if you're always presenting value, guys. Well, guys, man, thank you so much for your time. God bless you, man. Now, every single Thursday and Tuesday and Friday, guys, we actually have somewhere in the middle with Suni and Mo. I call them Sue and Mo, guys. Every time this is going, they're part of the TITM media group, guys. Let's go and get a little taste of what they do. Let's go. Let's get it in.
Now we're about to get.
I went down.
Facts on facts on facts. Hello.
Guys, that's somewhere in the middle with Suni and Mo every Tuesday and Friday. Get it in with, grab your boo, get in with them, guys, and have a little fun, learn something as well, guys. But guys, let's continue this discussion. Give me your thoughts, guys. Let me know if you think I'm off, if it makes some sense, guys. Let's continue this discussion, guys. But you know how I leave every single time, guys. Before you leave, and while you can, you see that thing, guys. Take that damn picture and give it to your mama and them. Now say it with your chest and holla at your partner. God bless you guys. See you next week. Peace.